Complain? Well, you're not alone. Everybody does. The society that you and I live in is quite cynical, critical, and everything is speeded up. It's often been called the rat race. Because of that, there's something missing. Do you know what it is? It's the opposite of bellyaching. It's a simple act of kindness. And if you have such a thing, you're going to make somebody's day. And if you do that, you've just boosted their emotional well-being. Do you know what I'm talking about? It starts by giving them something. Well, that's the opposite of complaining. What you gave them was a genuine compliment. You expressed in words, maybe in gestures, or even in actions, something that you gave away. Guess what happened? Remarkable power just lifted their spirit. And it strengthened their relationship, and it probably even transformed their life. Just a simple act of kindness, practice on a daily basis, starts a little small habit, and it makes the biggest difference. Compliment somebody. Do you know what happens when you do that? There's healing for depression. There's cure for anxiety. And it might even be some help for addiction. Those everyday little practices build good habits, and they establish healthy routines, and it leads to a good mental health. Here's my lesson for today. I want you to learn to give a compliment. And if you do, you're going to find that it's quite therapeutic. And if you practice it as a good habit every day, it's not going to cost you anything. And it won't give you any negative side effects. But what you might find, it could get you into a big time commitment because you might want to keep repeating this. And that good form along the way might even stop your belly aching. I have a text for you to confirm what I'm talking about. King Solomon, he wrote hundreds of Proverbs. They became part of the Old Testament Bible under the book of Proverbs. I'm going to give you two of them to prove my point. A word aptly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver. Proverbs 25:11. Aptly spoken words are compliments. Here's another one of Solomon's sayings. Pleasant words are like honeycomb, sweet to the soul, healing to the bones. Proverbs 16:24. Do you know what these two statements tell me? Nothing has changed since the ancient days. Way back there with Solomon. When you've been told that you're important, something inside happens to you. You're inspired, and then you're changed for the better. Now, what I'm saying is not what you hear from the politicians. I'm not talking about manipulation. I'm talking about compliments. That's not smooth talking flattery. In our age of slick social media schemes, clever marketing ploys, questionable come-ons, a smooth choking con man, that's not what Solomon's saying. Here are his words again. The right word at the right time is like a custom-made piece of expensive jewelry. Proverbs 25:11. I've only had one piece of jewelry all my life, and I'm still wearing it. It's my wedding ring. My wife gave it to me 60 years ago, and she still likes to see it on my finger, and that's probably the only jewelry I'll ever own. But it reminds me of the right time and the right place when I got married. It repeats itself again with these words. Gracious speech is like a clover honey, good taste to the soul, and it's quick energy for the body. Clover honey back on the farm, my dad used to tell me, was the best honey that you could find. What's Solomon saying here? He's talking about what happens when you talk to somebody communicating seriously and sincerely, giving them a heartfelt admiration. All you're doing is identifying traits that you value in that other person. And then you express it. And you express it to them as a compliment. And with your authentic appreciation, watch what happens. When you compliment, something magic happens. Here's my outline for today's lesson. I'm going to give it to you in 5 words. And it comes from the word magic. M-A-G-I-C. It's an acrostic of its word. When compliments take place, magic occurs. M, it magnifies one's worth. A, apples of gold. G, it galvanizes your connections. I, it insulates against tension. Finally, C, it's going to cultivate your confidence. 5 elements. If you use them, watch what happens. Here's the first one. Compliments magnify your worth. Since the pandemic, public health officials are worried about our mental health. For almost 2 years during that pandemic, our society was shut down. We had to mask our mouth and nose. We had to distance ourselves from others at 6 feet. Kids couldn't go to school. Everything became online learning. Offices closed. Workers worked from home. And many of them died. It forced a huge paradigm shift in our living. Remember, we sanitized our hands in every public building we entered. We were forced to do that, and I didn't mind doing that. We lived in isolation. Society withdrew into a shell. We're not made for that. Human beings are social creatures. We're wired for connection and we're wired for belonging. Giving compliments serves as a powerful tool to strengthen those social bonds, nurturing relationships. And it becomes a bridge. When compliments aren't received, the opposite happens. There's no trust. People have no empathy. And respect goes out the window. Since the pandemic, health workers have experienced a low level of self-worth. Psychologists affirm that when someone is praised, it triggers feelings of pleasure, feelings of happiness. And compliments have a scientifically proven capacity to uplift your mood and even enhance your mental health. That's what Solomon said. The right word at the right time, like a custom made piece of expensive jewelry. Proverbs 25:11. What Solomon was saying, by expressing your appreciation and by complimenting somebody in admiration, you're telling your listener at his deepest level that he's been told he's an amazing person, and he's never been told that before. You've magnified their self-worth. That's the M in magic. Here's something else happens when you compliment. A, apples of gold. Solomon said that a word aptly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver. Your words are like the sweet taste of a ripe apple. The Message Bible has another metaphor, and it describes it this way. Gracious speech is like clover honey, good taste to the soul, and it's also quick energy for the body. Generous praise, in other words, fosters the culture of kindness, and that has a ripple effect. It reverberates through a community. And as it being positive, it spreads in the workplace. Teachers can feel it in the classroom. Parents see it at the dinner table. In a society with so much division, so much discord, your compliment, apples of gold, it serves as a bridge across all those chasms of misunderstanding and conflict. When you acknowledge the strength and qualities of others, you have just sown harmony. Did you know that? One of the biggest enemies among seniors, I find, is isolation and loneliness. Do you want to know some magic to overcome those feelings? Try a simple act of compliment. Then watch the smile. It's going to come. And then a door is going to open and the connection has got to be made. And your gracious speech has become their apple of silver. Here's a third one. The letter G. Galvanize. Galvanize your connections. You've magnified them. Apples of gold them. Now galvanize them. Within any organization, when you cultivate a little mood of appreciation, magic is going to happen. You have just fostered a culture in that group of excellence. Leaders begin to celebrate each other. Your environment begins to feel value. People begin to excel. You start bringing the best out of someone, and they come alive. Suddenly, a person's strengths, a person's talents, and all their efforts, when they're acknowledged, there's now a sense of pride and there's also a sense of accomplishment. Do you suppose Solomon had that idea in his mind when he asked God all that time ago, "What can you give me? I'm going to be now the ruler of the nation of Israel. What can you give me to help me rule as a good king?" I think God told him, he said, "I want you to look at this. Give me a talent to compliment others. Build them up. A setting of overall good morale." Do you suppose that's why he wrote that proverb? Gracious speech is like clover honey, good to the taste, quick to the soul, and energy for the body. Proverbs 16:24. Here's a fourth one. I'm moving on. It's the word in the word magic. We've talked about compliments. They magnify. A, their apples are gold. G, they galvanize your connection. Here comes the I. It insulates against tension. What does that insulate mean? Well, during hard times, you need an armor, something that's going to protect you. And there's no better coping mechanism than receiving a compliment. Who you love, facing adversity, facing hardship. I have a sister, her name is Norma. She lives 2,500 miles away from me in Ontario. I live out in Alberta. And I can only visit her on the phone. In recent months, she has started losing weight. She can't eat. Her appetite is gone. She's become very weak. She's now finally bedridden. She was admitted to her hospital in her little town. And then over a number of days, the doctors were baffled. They didn't know anything. They couldn't find out, why are you so tired and why can't you eat? Nothing showed up. Norma got weaker. She tried getting out of bed to go and freshen up. But in getting out of bed, she fell and she broke her leg. You know, when you go to the hospital, you think you're going to get better. You don't go to the hospital to get worse. Well, she did. Now she's fighting a battle on two fronts. They moved her farther away to better treatment, to a bigger hospital, better experts, in a bigger city, but further away. And as I write this lesson, there Norma is, far from her home, still far from what's wrong with her body, because they don't know what it is yet. And I talk to her often through the speakerphone, through her husband and her daughter, who's at her side. And I want you to know that a better and only sister I could never have had. She's a retired nurse, but more than that, she's Queen Esther, Mother Teresa, and Florence Nightingale all rolled into one. Even her voice is weak, so is her body. But you know what? Her spirit is strong. I've been practicing on her the contents of this letter and this lesson that I'm just writing, especially this fourth point, insulating compliments. I've reminded her of the deep faith she has, the wonderful marriage she enjoys, amazing children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. All of her achievements and all her celebrations I tell her about. And then I told Norma, I'm going to prepare a lesson with her as my inspiration, and this is it. In her 80 years, she followed everything that King Solomon wrote in his Proverbs, especially in serving others and giving compliments so generously. And others found her as a magic example in her church and in her community and where she lived. I use my sister as an example for the fourth point, magic. The letter I, insulate against tension. You know, Norma should be bitter. She should be angry at the doctors that they can't find what's wrong with her, and angry at the nurses for not getting her safely back to her bed after she broke her leg. I think I'd be ticked off, wouldn't you? She doesn't know what's wrong with her. She could be mad at that. She can't come home with her husband who's worried sick. That's not going to help her. Instead, there's her smile. There's her soft voice. There's her unwavering faith. There's her steadfast family love, all insulated because of her gracious speech of honey, good taste to the soul, and energy for her body, even though she hasn't got much. And it could be wasting away, but that hasn't changed her. She's still the sister that I wish I was as a brother. Well, let's close this out with the fifth of our word in the word magic. The letter C. Cultivate confidence. When you give a compliment, what you're doing is demonstrating gratitude. When you express appreciation, you're going to suddenly fill a gaping hole in others' lives. And when you do that, negative thinking and emotional distress, it all disappears. Suddenly, your compliment becomes a coping mechanism for their change. And everybody needs a good compass to navigate the storms, don't they? My wife and I, we visited a private school the other week. It was for a ribbon cutting ceremony. It was a brand new high school just added, and it's a complement to the elementary school. And they've got hundreds of students. One of their older science teacher was there and met me, showed me around the school, and then he took me to the trophy case on the main hallway. And in on that display, there's a large framed picture of one of his former colleagues, a teacher, there in the school. He died early in his 60s of cancer, but he was highly revered by the students and the teachers alike. Everybody liked him. He was one of the favorites in the school. Well, that teacher's son is a member of our congregation right here at our church. He's married, little children. I told him in the church hallway the following Sunday that I met his dad in the trophy case there at the school where he taught. His teacher's son is just like his dad. Well respected, good family man, outgoing, excellent in public relations. I complimented him and I told him that he looks just like his dad. And then I said, and I was cultivating his confidence, have you ever thought of being a teacher? Following in the steps of your dad? Have you any idea how many young lives you could shape in your lifetime if you were a school teacher like your dad? Well, he just stood there in silence as he stared at me. He's an author. He's written 2 books. And I told him about the endless reward that he would enjoy if he changed careers. He would touch more lives over the years as a school teacher than I would ever touch as a pastor. Cultivate confidence. Think of the magic that you could spread in the lives of all those youth. I think I've got that young man thinking. Well, take my lesson today. Gracious speech, like clover honey, good taste to the soul, quick energy for the body. That's Solomon's definition of a compliment. Magnifies one's worth, apples of gold, galvanizes your connection, insulates against tension, cultivates confidence. Do you know, if you practice this magic, I think something else is going to happen. You're going to stop belly aching. I think it's helped me. I don't think I'm as bad as I was. And I think I might even be getting better because of what Solomon taught me. Thanks for coming today. I'll look for you next week when you come back.